Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Well, there was some massive news that came out today. And, there were some intimations and a little bit of a trail leading up to this. There were rumblings that Brian Ferentz may be gone even before this next game. But of course, I'm somebody who does not really get into the rumblings. I'm not willing to make a video off of the rumblings. But here we are, okay? I always say facts over feelings, and here we are. The fact is that the University of Iowa, and it's been reported across the board, will not be having Brian Ferentz as their offense coordinator next year, and will not be continuing with his contract. So here we are, the NHA YouTube channel, and I wanted to share my thoughts about this as succinctly as possible about Iowa, about Brian, and just really get into it all, okay? By the way, guys, before I get into that, I'm looking for a pen that's on my desk here. Before I get into that, I want to ask you guys to consider smashing that subscribe button, like, comment, share. You guys know the drill. If you guys want to donate to the channel, you absolutely can by hitting the donation button on this video or going to the PayPal or Cash App link in the description. Some of you guys have asked me if I still plan on doing a call-in show. And the thing is with a call-in show is, for one person, it's a lot to have to manage. And I would want the show to be very matter-of-factly, very efficient, and things like that. I think it could be done with just me, and I've tried it in the past. I definitely think it could be done, especially if I started using StreamYard. I think I could even utilize Zoom and share out the link and accept people to come in and chat. But the one thing with Zoom, though, that I'm not sure about is if there's like the ability to boot somebody from the call and end the call when I want to end it. So there's some things that I have to look into. And I'm not saying no, it's a possibility, but I only would want to do it if it could be done well. And I know a lot of you guys would definitely call in and share your thoughts. And, I love the social interaction and things like that. So I am definitely open to it. I am. And if you guys know for a fact that Zoom does have the ability to the person who's hosting the Zoom call has the ability to end the call with somebody. Let me know if you guys think that StreamYard would be better for that. For example, if you guys think that Zoom has the ability, but you think ultimately StreamYard would be better, let me know. And if it does work on Zoom, just let me know in the comment section. I could find out easily enough by Googling and just going trial by error. I need some time to carve out to do this and to test it out. So that's that. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get into this. Brian Ferentz. So let's start here. Your boy last week on Facebook said that enough was enough. And this was actually before I had even seen some of the rumblings that he may be gone. And I was absolutely done. We had not seen a marked improvement. And for me specifically, I think that I have been one of the most fair Hawkeye contributors when it comes to Brian Ferentz. And, I would consistently use his first couple years at Iowa as a reference point for where things could be and where they could go back to and even possibly improve. We had the USC game. I'll say it right now. There was the USC game. There was one of the Kentucky games, Mississippi State games. We had the Ohio State game where Nate Stanley was throwing the ball all over the yard and Iowa put up 50+ points on Ohio State. I mean, it was crazy. Okay. But I would, if I'm going to say that, which I just did, I would also need to really dive into whether or not, or who was still on the roster, because I know Ken O'Keefe was there and was the quarterback's coach. And I guarantee, and I'm talking about the coaching staff who was still there. And I guarantee Ken O'Keefe did assist Brian in the scheme and play calling and things of that nature. If you guys remember, Brian Ferentz used to call the game in the booth, and then he switched to calling the game on the field. I mean, there's just all of these things that have happened. But, regardless of who was still there, whether Greg Davis was still helping out, whether Ken O'Keefe, and I really think that the primary one was Ken O'Keefe. Ken O'Keefe came back with the sole purpose of coaching the quarterbacks and really helping out Brian Ferentz in his first couple of years as OC. And so it's really difficult to give Brian Ferentz sole responsibility and praise for the first couple of years in which he was the offense coordinator. So with that being said, you guys have to admit that there were bright spots in the past. Like I said, Ohio State, Mississippi State, USC. I mean, it was primarily with Nate Stanley at quarterback, but everything after Nate Stanley was downhill. Okay. Everything after Nate Stanley was downhill for Brian Ferentz. And it really was when Ken O'Keefe left. So I think that I have been as fair as it can be. I've said that I think Brian Ferentz is a good position coach. He's a good tight end coach. He's a good offensive line coach, because those two positions allow him to utilize the development and training tools that he himself knows very well from his time playing as an offensive lineman. Because tight end is basically an offensive lineman who also catches footballs, at least in the Iowa Hawkeye offense. And so it's just really difficult to pinpoint how much praise we should give to Brian Ferentz for the first couple of years in which he was offensive coordinator. But I think I was very fair, and I would be fine with, even now, guys, to tell you the truth, I would be fine with having Brian Ferentz remain as an offensive line coach and boot George Barnett. Now, my one reservation, and if you guys, you know what, I'm going to see if I can find it, because I did a video way back when detailing who I would put in there as offensive coordinator if Brian Ferentz was no longer the coach. But it was one of my early videos. The channel was not nearly as big, so I'm going to have to scroll like way, way down. But I said that Brian Ferentz, to me, would be a good offensive line coach. Now, in that, I said my one reservation would be the racial allegations that transpired, whom Brian Ferentz was one of them. Now, you guys know how I feel about the allegations, okay? I don't need to dive into that. And again, I think that that's another piece of evidence that I was as fair to Brian Ferentz and to Kirk Ferentz as one can possibly be. But due to that, Brian Ferentz, I don't think would be able to recruit as well as he did in the past. But in the past, he did show an ability to recruit fairly well. And, you know, I said after time, perhaps he would be able to regain, after there was enough separation from the racial allegations, perhaps he would be able to regain some of his recruiting mojo. And, you know, George Barnett has struggled as the offensive line coach, and he definitely should be concerned about being the next person to not have his contract renewed. But one thing that that George Barnett has done well is he is a decent recruiter. I mean, he has landed 2 very good offensive tackles. This is a pretty good offensive line class, even in this current class. High 3-star, 4-star guys. Will Nolan out of Illinois is a 4-star offensive lineman by multiple recruiting services. So that is that. Okay. I have been fair to him and have done my best to be as unbiased as possible when it comes to my assessment of Brian Ferentz. Okay. The next thing that I want to say, just going back, this is what I said last week. I said, fellow Iowa fans, I know there are different opinions on the Cooper DeJean fair catch, invalid catch, whatever you want to call it. Regardless, I said this 3 days ago. Regardless, it is time for Iowa to move on from Brian. I honestly don't know how much blame goes to him versus Kirk versus George Barnett. Maybe they all 3 deserve equal blame. It's time for a change. We have seen enough. I think I have been really fair to Brian and the offense and open to improvement or excuses. I also think that Iowa needs to give a genuine look at Joey Labus. It seems the Iowa coaching staff does not understand the concept of good practice player versus a gamer. So there you guys can see I was officially out multiple days before this all went down. And that is that. My next thought is, you know, normally I would not be like ecstatic when somebody loses their livelihood and their job. But the sad fact is that Brian has made far more money than he than he deserves. If you look at the offensive stats, he has made far more money than he has actually earned based off of the production on the field. There are people, other coaches who have had far better production on the offense who don't make nearly as much money as Brian Ferentz does. Okay. I got to wash my mic here. And that's just a fact. And so normally, you know, I would not be somebody who revels in somebody losing their job, but Brian has been paid more than enough for below average results for much of his offense coordinator career. So I don't really feel bad. And, you know, I'm somebody who tries to look at the opportunities in things, whether it's for me or for other people. This really is, I think, going to be the best thing for Brian because it just was not working out at Iowa. And if you look at Brian Ferentz holistically at his time regarding his time at Iowa, it by and large has been negative. And most people have a negative viewpoint when it comes to him, whether it be for the offensive coordinator stuff and the production from the offense on the field, or it has to do with the racial allegations, or it has to do with him being Kirk Ferentz's son. The bottom line is a majority of people especially when it comes to non-Iowa Hawkeye fans, have a negative viewpoint of Brian Ferentz. And so what I'm getting at is, even though, he has made way more money than he deserves, and I don't feel bad for him one bit, this, I think, is the best thing for him. And I think there's a pretty good opportunity for him, to get this worked out elsewhere. And, I don't think he has a future as an offensive coordinator, but he can become potentially a really, really, really good offensive line coach. I'm going to go ahead and pause this so I can find the video that I'm talking about so you guys can watch it later if you guys would like. So actually, this is the video here. I said the title of the video is Top Candidates to Replace Kirk Ferentz When the Time is Right. And of course, Brian Ferentz was a part of that. So I spent time talking about Brian Ferentz. I think it is worth going back and checking out and watching yourselves. But you guys can see that I have not, I've been consistent with my thoughts on Brian Ferentz and this whole situation. So the other thought that I have, and I said this in my Facebook post, I had my reservations regarding interim AD Beth Gates, but I think she's actually done a good job thus far. This is what I said. One early thought I have regarding Beth Gates, I had my reservations with her, but thus far I have liked what she has done. It has not been business as usual, and she has shown a willingness. I gotta edit that. Sorry, guys. Sometimes, when I'm at work, I just got to pump these things out real quick. Showing a willingness to stand on her own 2 feet and make tough decisions. One other decision would be from earlier this year when she made it clear regarding the need to work with the Swarm Collective. Sue said she is cleaning up Barda's mess. I've been very vocal about Gary Barda. I think he did some good things, some bad things. I think towards the end of his career, he made pretty good hires at head coaching positions. I want to read some of the thoughts, some of the comments. I put how the news about Brian Ferentz will impact the season, and in particular, the Iowa offense, is anybody's guess. What are your thoughts on the impact for this season? So let's see. Michael Kroll. Rehire him as the O-line coach, get rid of Barnett, and get a new strength and conditioning coach. Too many injuries. Timing is bad, and I think Kirk is done after this season as well. I don't agree with that myself. I think Kirk is healthy for his age. I think that this will actually alleviate some stress for him. And I think by the end of the season, he will come to terms with this and be optimistic about the potential for Iowa to even take another big step forward towards the end of his career. So, Craig Kurnt, none. The problem is still no Doyle. Stats show that the offense cannot do any worse. Glad he's gone. Can't be any worse. Won't change anything. Offense will look exactly the same next year. Just be a different person that calls. And, I agree with that, guys. I do. And that was going to be another one of my thoughts regarding this is, I want to caution you guys not to get too excited about this, because I have long said that although Brian Ferentz sucks, Kirk Ferentz is the head chef, and Brian Ferentz is the whatever is higher, whether it's sous chef and whatever it is, Brian Ferentz is the junior to the head chef. And so Kirk Ferentz tells the entire coaching staff, aka the cooking staff, how to prepare the food, aka how to prepare the team. I think I remember reading this on Hawk Central. And it's true. And so for that reason, I want to caution you guys from getting too excited, because ultimately Kirk Ferentz is still the head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, I would also say that we have plenty of evidence to suggest that he can change and that he can become more offensive minded, or not more offensive minded, but be willing to have his team evolve and be more open and creative offensively. The odd thing is, though, if you guys remember back in like 2014, 2013, remember the whole, and I said this in a recent video, a lot of people forget this, but do you guys remember the whole Kirk 2.0, Kirk 3.0, where we were starting to see Iowa go for it on fourth down rather than kicking field goals, where we saw Iowa doing trick plays on punt returns and kick returns and stuff like that. And we saw Iowa implement a Wildcat offense and things like that. So much for that. That just went by the wayside. And, you know, that was true for like a year or two, and then it went down the wayside. But again, that would still be evidence that it's possible, that it's at least possible. So, you know, but I do tend to agree with that sentiment that ultimately, as fans, we need to tamper our expectations because of Kirk Ferentz. I think the expectation should just be that that Iowa has an average offense. That's it. That's it. And that Kirk Ferentz needs to do whatever he needs to do to have that be the case. And whether that's the new offensive coordinator and being open to that offensive coordinator's changes within the scope of the Iowa Hawkeye program and team, whatever the case may be, that's what we should be hoping for, is just an average offense, you know, consistently scoring, you know, being in the top 65 in scoring offense. Okay. And in the top 75 in total offense. Okay. Iowa traditionally has not been a massive yardage team, but they have been a team that can score points. So that's kind of my metric of what I would be. That is not too high of an expectation. Okay. And I think most Iowa fans feel the same way I do. Okay. We're not looking for Iowa to become Oregon or USC under. We're not looking for that. We don't need that. We just need Iowa to be average. Greg A. Daniels should make all the part-time Iowa fans happy. That's funny. I can't stand fans like that sometimes, because there's some fans that their viewpoint is any criticism makes you a disloyal fan. And that's just such a ludicrous concept. We pay money to support this team. We can have an opinion on this team and the program. So there's some comments on it. You know, really quickly, I wanted to put out who some of the candidates are. You know, I think the most likely at this point, sadly, is probably John Budemeyer. You know, that would be a classic. That would be a classic Kirk Ferentz hire. But here are some replacements according to Brandon Marcello for 247 Sports. John Budemeyer, Iowa senior special assistant to the head coach. He's been an offense coordinator at Wisconsin and Utah State, and was a former Wisconsin quarterback. Joe Moorhead, former Penn State offense coordinator. I think that would be an excellent hire. I think that he would want nothing to do with Iowa, but it's worth a call. Jim Zabrowski, Kansas quarterbacks coach. Andrew Sauter, Minnesota tight ends coach. Nick Sheridan, Washington tight ends coach. and Gino Gudugli, Notre Dame quarterbacks coach. So that's the short list. Let's see. What other thoughts do I have on this? So with regards to the potential candidates, the one thing that you have to keep in mind, especially if Kirk Ferentz remains the head coach, is Kirk Ferentz tends to look for coaches that are willing to grow with Iowa and at least be there for one whole recruiting cycle, 4 or 5 years. They're not going to take a guy who's possibly only going to be there for 1 year and jump ship. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. That is not how Kirk Ferentz does things. My last thoughts, guys, are really just on recruiting, how this will impact recruiting. I think the only position, if anything, I think overall this will actually help recruiting. And that's why Brian Ferentz is still the offense coordinator, is so he can continue to communicate with the recruits and make sure that they end up at Iowa. The only position that I see possibly this impacting is the quarterback commit, James Razor. But even him, he's been committed to Iowa for a long time. And most Iowa commits are committed to the program as a whole rather than the position coach. Now, I'm not saying the position coach means nothing. That's not the case. And make no mistake, if Iowa didn't have Phil Parker, Xavier Wanpa would not have ended up there. Okay. There are certainly some where the position coach matters a great deal. But by and large, Iowa commits are there for the program and Kirk Ferentz and, how long and ultimately the message will be, yes, Brian Ferentz won't be here, but Kirk Ferentz will still be here. And we're going to find the right offense coordinator and it's going to be even better. So whatever you were committed to us before, because it'll be even better this upcoming year. And, it'll get worked out. But Iowa needs to be pounding the pavement now early so that they can start telling the recruits who they think they're going to, and get them ready to go. Everybody else, I don't see changing their commitment to Iowa. The only one that I see possibly changing would be James Razor. But you guys have to remember that Iowa, it's not like the entire coaching staff left. It's not as though Kirk Ferentz left. And you guys also have to remember that nowadays recruiting has sped up so much that most of these other classes are completely full. Like James Razor had an offer from North Carolina, but North Carolina already has their quarterback committed as well. So, I don't want you guys to be concerned. I think Iowa will keep all of their recruits. If anything, I think it'll help them. It'll certainly help them in this upcoming 2025 recruiting class. As you guys can see, let's see. Oh, wow. Maybe they don't have their quarterback yet. Oh, here it is. And most of the time, most teams only take one quarterback. So, my final thought is, as for this season, how this will impact this season, I don't know. Maybe it'll open. I mean, I really have no clue, guys. I mean, I can see it both ways. Maybe it'll open things up. Maybe Brian Ferentz will finally get some hair, where, and decide to open some things up offensively. I think the more safe pick is that it won't change anything. Brian Ferentz will still be Brian Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz will still be Kirk Ferentz. And this offense will still be abysmal. My one hope is that Brian Ferentz, because of this, is far more willing to look at Joey Labus. You guys know I've been a fan of his for a while now. I think he is the answer at quarterback. at least until Cade McNamara gets healthy. And even if Cade McNamara gets healthy, I think Joe Labus may be the long-term solution for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But I really don't know, guys. I mean, I think the safe bet is that everything's going to remain the same, and that's it. But is it possible that Brian Ferentz decides to open things? I mean, maybe, you know, you never know. But the thing is, why would he open things up now when he has nothing to coach for? I mean, the thing is that ultimately, if this is what he was willing to do and the play calls that he was willing to make when he still had a chance to be the offense coordinator next year for Iowa, why would he do it now when he knows he will no longer be the offense coordinator at Iowa? What motivation does he have besides putting some tape out there for other teams for his next potential coaching job? You know, I like I said, guys, I'm really in favor of him remaining on the coaching staff and eventually getting back to coaching offensive line, because I think it'll take a long time for him to get back to being an offense coordinator, if that ever happens at all. And, you know, I think the more likely thing is that Brian Ferentz goes somewhere else as a position coach and does, you know, let's say all things happen good as well as they can and as positively as they can. And he's able to say, listen, I've been offense coordinator. I've been there before. I've experienced doing it, but ultimately I'm a head coach. I need to be a head coach. And then he just takes a jump at being a head coach at a small school. And, you know, but other than that, he's a position coach. I don't think Brian Ferentz will ever be an offense coordinator again at the Division I level or higher. Certainly not at the Power 5 level. So that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, you know, your guess is as good as mine about who Iowa is turning to, who they're looking at. You know, my main thought is finally we have a resolution to this. And, you know, finally, and I'm happy Beth Gates has been standing on her own 2 feet with regards to this. But, you know, time will tell, and I'll keep you guys posted on all of the upcoming information. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about this, what your thoughts are from top to bottom. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's get this channel to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the football season. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy, will out in facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye.